Hey everyone, it's B, and you're listening to another episode of the In Your Feelings podcast. So, for those of you who are new here, In Your Feelings is a podcast I created with Thought Catalog that dives into the very real and very messy aspects of life that we are all navigating together. This podcast is dedicated to having honest conversations relative to things like relationships and moving on and worthiness, those things that can feel really disheartening and really confusing, in the hopes that that openness and that vulnerability makes you feel less alone and reminds you that you aren't the only person who is dealing with certain things in life. And with that being said, today we are going to be talking about outgrowing our relationships, learning how to give ourselves permission to understand that as human beings, sometimes we have to give ourselves permission to walk away, to lay down our love, to be honest and aware with our hearts, and to understand when something simply isn't working anymore. And that within itself is an extremely difficult thing to do. It's hard to come to terms with the fact that you may have to let go of something that once brought you so much joy. It is hard to stop caring. You meet someone and you care so deeply, and you see so much potential. And maybe you start a relationship or a friendship with them, and things are really beautiful, and things are really pointed, and things feel genuinely real and deep. There's a connection, and you feel valued, and you make memories with this person, and you have inside jokes, and you love them so much, and you give them so much of your heart in so many ways. So much of yourself exists within them. And sometimes that lasts, and that is something I think every single person wishes for in life. But as human beings who are constantly changing, as human beings who are constantly being faced with the ways in which life tries to weather us, as human beings who are dealing with so many different worlds within our own minds, so many different hardships and experiences and goals and wants and needs and desires, sometimes things do change. Life transforms our hearts, or we are met with circumstances that open our eyes or make us see our relationships from a different perspective, or see ourselves from a different perspective. And maybe we come to terms with the fact that we might be holding on to potential, or to the way things were in the past, just to keep someone in our lives, just to protect ourselves from hurt. When you're an empath, or when you are the kind of person who feels deeply, walking away can be a very long process. It can be so difficult. Trust me, I know this. When you love with every single thing inside of you, it can be easy to make excuses for the way that someone makes you feel just to keep them in your life. And the truth is, a lot of people who are highly sensitive and who are empathetic understand it from a level that is deep and ingrained, and often a reflection of what they themselves have been through. I've said it before, but I truly do believe that those who love the hardest and who are the kindest souls have lived in a world that was not so kind to them, and have loved people who haven't always protected their hearts. And therefore they understand what it means to be the kind of person who has been let down. They know what it is like to be walked away from, to question your heart because of that. And within that knowledge, it can be extremely confusing to determine whether to stay or to go. It can be extremely difficult to give yourself permission to stop tearing yourself apart just to make something work. Because you just want to so desperately believe in the potential and the hope you have within you. You so desperately want to protect someone from ever having to feel the way that you felt, from ever having to go through that. And so you stay. But at what point does that become self-sabotage? At what point does caring deeply about another human being start to mean that you are no longer caring for yourself? I think it is so important for empaths to understand that walking away does not mean that you are giving up on someone. Sometimes we have to understand that walking away can be the best gift we give to someone and to ourselves, because it helps for us to learn lessons. It helps for us to grow, and vice versa. If we stay in relationships we have outgrown, if we continue to love someone for the convenience or to appease them, are we really giving them the space to grow? The space to find the kind of love that will genuinely be the right love for them in whatever season or state they are in at the moment. Because the truth is, sometimes love does change. We add so much negativity to walking away. And when you care deeply, you are so worried about hurting someone that you start to feel bad for creating boundaries, for asking for what you need, but that doesn't serve you. And it doesn't serve the relationship and the person that you're with, because it isn't healthy. And that is no one's fault. Someone can be absolutely incredible. Someone can be the love of your life for years, and they can teach you so much and grow you so much and do so damn much for you and help you in your seasons. And you can still get to a point where you do not see a future with them. Or you can get to a point where you need to walk away. And that is okay. We walk away for so many reasons. We outgrow people for so many reasons, and it is okay. You have to understand that you are not a bad person for not being able to make things work. You are not a bad person for letting go. And because there can be so much mental confusion when it comes to loving deeply and having to walk away, sometimes we really have to classify how we feel in a relationship and learn how to have compassion for ourselves in these moments. Instead of convincing yourself that it's fine, that you need to grip and try harder and hold on tightly, really assessing if you should stay or if you should go is important. And so I've written out some ways you can teach yourself how to determine whether or not you should keep someone in your life, whether or not your love has given you all that it can. I firmly believe that you walk away not when you have run out of love, but when you've run out of growth. And determining that is the best step you can take. It's the beginning of everything, because it will help for you to stop associating how much you feel and how much you care with how deeply a relationship is meant to be in your life. Because you can care deeply for someone and let them go. You can care deeply for someone and understand that you need space. You can care deeply for someone and outgrow them. Okay, so I think one of the biggest ways to determine whether or not you need to continue putting your energy into a relationship, or the most important way to determine if you've outgrown someone, is to simply connect with how they make you feel. If you don't feel positive after being with them, that is a sign. A positive relationship should be uplifting. Obviously, you're going to face rough patches along the way. Life is life, and it weathers us in so many ways. But a healthy relationship is a constructive experience. You should be accepting of each other and supportive and responsive. It should feel tender. It should feel light. Because life is hard, but love should not be hard. Love should always be your safe place. And if you are with someone and you hang out with them or you spend time with them and you walk away and you feel exhausted or overwhelmed or like you are just trying so hard to make it work with someone who does not see you or get you or leave you with a feeling of being protected and being safe, then that means you've probably outgrown a relationship that might have been that for you at one point. And that is okay. That is okay. And in relation to that question, really determining how they make you feel, you should also ask yourself if you change yourself around them. Do you feel like you have to be more of this or less of that in order to keep them happy? You should never feel the need to be another person just to accommodate someone who is meant to love you. A sign of outgrowing a relationship is there whenever you feel like you are afraid to grow into the person you are inspired to become. In the right relationships, you won't have to quiet yourself or the way you love or the way you care or the things you desire in life in order to keep someone within your own. At the end of the day, sometimes the people in your life will want different things, and that is fine. It's a matter of determining if that difference is something breachable, or if that difference is asking for you to compromise really important parts of yourself in order to keep this love in your life. So really think, do you feel like you can be yourself? Do you feel like you are seen? And more importantly, do you feel like you're growing? Like you have someone by your side who wants to grow with you and grow in their individual ways too. Someone who is excited to see the ways in which you're working towards your goals. Someone who understands them and comprehends just how deeply you're striving and is proud of you there and holds you there and doesn't make you feel bad for wanting to transform and evolve. At the end of the day, the people in your life should be in awe of your evolution. They should encourage it. Because changing and growing is only ever going to take away from the relationships that aren't willing to grow with you. If there is tension, if you feel like you have to hold yourself back because you're scared of losing someone, because your bigness would be an issue, because the brevity of what you want is just too big to hold for someone, then that is such a beautiful compass towards walking away. If love only works when you're operating from a place of lack, when you are not able to step fully into who you want to be, then that kind of love benefits from you being a lesser version of yourself, a quieter version of yourself, a less evolved version of yourself, a version of yourself that is trying to outgrow its boundaries but is being asked to stay in the confines of something that wants to keep it small or preserved or protected within comfort. And where does that leave you? What is that cost? When you feel like you cannot fully expand in a relationship, are you genuinely happy? And another question to ask yourself is, does your relationship feel like it has a foundation of compassion in it? You know, while chemistry and shared values are important, at the end of the day, solid relationships are built on the compassion that exists between two people. Kindness is what holds relationships together. I will say that until I'm blue in the face. It is the kindness and the goodwill towards one another that creates a beautiful, lasting bond. It's being on a partner's side. It's being on their team. It's the willingness to forgive flaws, to have grace for them and their mistakes, and to find understanding and work through issues from a place of empathy. It's the support and admiration and respect and dedication and commitment you have to one another. And when you outgrow someone, you can start to see all of the ways you maybe lost that in a relationship. And this doesn't happen all the time. The goodness doesn't generally just disappear overnight, but sometimes it erodes slowly. And this is what we talk about when we say that we outgrow certain relationships in life. Sometimes we can be in love with the person, but not in love with the way that they treat us or see us. Sometimes we can be in love with the person, but as life and experience occurs, we lose our kindness towards one another. And behaviors that often indicate that the goodness may be waning include irritability, anger, distancing, meanness, and the lack of respect of any kind, as I'm sure you could have already guessed. And unfortunately, once that goodness fades, once you feel like you can't fully show up as you are, or ask for what you need, or do even the smallest thing without feeling like you're walking on eggshells, or like you'll upset someone, or like they're just not trying to see things from your perspective. They're not trying any longer to meet you where they are, the way that they used to. The relationship truly does become a breeding ground for hurt. This is the way I think a lot of us hurt one another. We suffocate our love, we don't walk away, and we end up in connections that break us down, where we don't feel emotionally safe or taken care of, where the warmth fades due to comfort. This is such a telltale sign that you've outgrown someone. If you feel like you are not respected, if you feel like someone just assumes you are going to stick around and nurture them and pour into them just because you have been together with them for a long period of time, just because you are loyal and dedicated, that isn't love. That isn't right. You shouldn't allow for yourself to be mistreated or to be loved in halves. You shouldn't let someone get away with making you feel upset all the time, or not worthy, or have them hurt you with their actions and their words, because we often end up hurting those we love the most, who we are closest with. In a weird way, we just assume those people are going to stick around, that they're going to fight even when we don't deserve it. And so if this is you, if this is how you're being treated, I hope you understand that while you may hold a lot of care and love within your heart for this relationship and this person, it isn't protecting your heart. It isn't fostering kindness within the relationship. And you deserve that. It is okay to realize you've outgrown this connection because there lacks compassion or empathy or understanding within it. It is okay and so normal. So ask yourself, does it feel one-sided? The energy flow between two people in most healthy relationships is fairly equal. The give and take should allow both partners, for the most part, to feel like they're getting their needs met. But when a relationship starts to deteriorate and when you start to outgrow someone, it can feel like one person is doing all the work to maintain it. And that creates imbalance and disconnect. If you're the person who is doing all of that work, you can become resentful, and your partner who's on the receiving end can become more and more complacent. And that creates a very, very odd dynamic because, especially for empaths, suddenly they want to give and give and give to try to pull someone closer to them, to try to ensure that they're saving the relationship. But when you try too hard to get someone to come towards you, they generally move in the opposite direction. You can only hold on so tightly to someone who doesn't seem to want to meet you where you are. You have to remind yourself that one-sided love is not love. And while every relationship is different, both people should generally feel like there's room for them to grow and develop and to feel like their individual dreams and aspirations in life matter. They should feel like there is space for their interests to be included in the relationship, and that there's enough opportunity for each partner's needs to be met. Relationships that you've outgrown or that are imbalanced will always revolve around one person. The person around who the relationship revolves around is generally obviously satisfied with this arrangement, while the other person ends up feeling used and sad and exhausted and like they're living someone else's life. So ask yourself, do things in your relationship feel reciprocated? Are you being emotionally taken care of? Do you feel held? Do you feel like this person in your life genuinely shows up and puts in effort? And this isn't, it's me, so I have to say this. This isn't a space where you should start comparing and listing off all the things you do for them versus the things that they do for you. Sometimes when we are empathetic, it can feel like we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, and we can actually lose sight of the ways in which our partners and our friends are showing up for us in their own ways. Sometimes what seems like a small amount of effort on behalf of another person is actually an insurmountable amount of effort for them. And you have to love someone the way they need to be loved, not the way you need to be loved. And you have to teach someone how to, in turn, love you the way that you need to be loved. But beyond that, once you communicate, once you know that this person has been given the tools and the knowledge to make you feel seen and vice versa, does it still feel one-sided? If it does, then it's time to respect your time and your energy and your effort and understand that you've outgrown this person. Whew, okay. The next question is, are you holding on to the past? Are you rationalizing their behavior in order to fit them into a past version of themselves? The one you fell in love with. Are you not being honest with yourself about how much they have changed or grown into the kind of person you don't necessarily dislike, but a kind of person you don't necessarily want to be around or love or see in your future? Are you gripping at the highlights and not reminding yourself of all the reasons why things feel heavy and hard in the connection? And once this starts, it's a large indicator that you have outgrown someone. Who they were when you met was who you needed, and the relationship has served its purpose, but life has grown them into the kind of human being that doesn't feel good for you anymore. You try to grip at that goodness, you try to grip at that past, but you can't live in the past with someone you continue to carry into your future. You have to lay it down. You have to give yourself permission to outgrow them instead of staying in love with a version of them that no longer exists. And within that, are you holding on to their potential? To the version of them you thought they could become? Are you gripping and trying so deeply just to stick around in the hopes that in the future they will be different? It's so okay to be honest with yourself here. This is quite possibly one of the most difficult questions to answer, especially as someone who cares deeply, because potential is beautiful. Having a heart that believes in someone is beautiful. Caring deeply and wanting to be patient with someone as they grow into who they are becoming is beautiful. Anyone who follows me and anyone who listens to this podcast knows that I will never vilify you for that. I think it is an incredible way to be in the world. I wish more people were like that. But it does get to a point where you need to understand that you might not even be in love with this person as they are now. You might be in love with the idea of them, and unfortunately, that isn't love. That is a sign that you've outgrown someone. Because if you can't love someone where they are, as they are, in their humanness, if you are constantly trying to push them forward on their journey towards becoming and healing and growing or whatever, you're not holding them where they are. You're holding them against a standard that doesn't exist in reality. And that is more damaging than it is tender. That isn't fair to them. You have to love someone as they are, no matter what. And if you can't, it's time to walk away. It's time to set the potential down. All right. I have one more question for you, and I've asked you this before on this podcast, but when you're really trying to determine if you've outgrown a relationship, if you should walk away versus if you should stay, I need you to ask yourself if you are afraid. Loss is measurable. Sometimes it can be so difficult to walk away, to understand when relationships have overstayed their welcome, because loss is so measurable. It directly creates so many voids in our lives, voids that we immediately feel. You know someone in the deepest way, you learn all about them, and you hold so much of them within you through their memory and their nostalgia and the things that you've created together, but you don't actually have access to them anymore. You can't hear their laugh or them singing in the shower or wake up to them on a Sunday morning and make breakfast together, and your traditions and your inside jokes and all of that, it just gets tucked away within you for safekeeping. And human beings are museums filled with all of the people they once loved. And that gets heavy. You really feel that in your bones. Loss is so measurable. It can be hard to choose to admit to yourself that you've outgrown a relationship, because it means that you will have to go off into the future, and that future is uncertain. Here you have someone who may not fulfill you or challenge you or grow you anymore, but you do have someone by your side who you feel comfortable with. And it can be easy to convince yourself to stay because of that. I mean, what if you don't find someone who will meet you where you are right now? What if? But the real question to ask yourself is, what if you do? What if you let go and you learn how to step into yourself? What if you walk away and you meet someone within this season of your life that grows you and challenges you and loves you the way that you need to be loved right now? What if you learn how to let go of people who have served their purpose in your life? Because that often means that you have served your purpose in their life as well. What if? What if you just walked away with grace and saw endings as beautiful things, looked back on the relationship as something that added so much beauty to your life but that cannot stay? What if you gave yourself permission to walk away from the people you have outgrown? You have to trust your growth. And more importantly, you have to fight for it. Man, at at the end of the day, I know. When you care deeply, you leap towards wanting to fix others and to be there for them. You never want to give up on another human being because you see the duality that exists in life. For most deep feelers, nothing is ever black and white, even an action that might confuse or hurt you. A human being is simply just a human being, just another person who is trying to figure themselves out too. And when you see the world like this, you can rationalize or justify almost anything. However, that does not mean that you have to stay in its presence or give it access to you. You can see things for what they are. You can reconcile the reasoning behind the action, but it is important to always look at things objectively, almost protectively of your heart and your care and your depth. So this is the last thing I want you to ask yourself. Does this person you are thinking about right now, because every person listening to this podcast is thinking of a specific human being in their life, does this person encourage clarity and peace in your life? Do they nourish your mind, your soul on a level that stems far beneath the surface of who you are? Does this person make you feel seen and understood and safe? Do they make you genuinely believe in goodness and in yourself? Do they make you feel valued? If they do, then that connection deserves to be in your life. It deserves your energy. It is serving purpose there. You have not outgrown it. But if it does not, if you're holding on to people that add a weight to you, that are dishonest with you, or that are holding you back, that make you question your heart or the way that you exist in this world, you have to have the courage to walk away. You have to have the courage to outgrow the people who do not know how to love you any longer. All right, I hope that helped. I hope I gave you a few questions that you can go through to just really determine whether the relationships you are keeping in your life are growing you and whether they are beautiful additions to your life. I hope that this podcast helped to add some clarity into your heart and to crack some light into your mind if this is something you've been struggling with. And above all else, I hope it really encouraged you, if you have realized that maybe you're holding on to something you've actually outgrown, to let it go, to lay down your love, to for once in your life choose yourself and to choose uncertainty and to not keep something in it for comfort or to not keep someone around just to continue pouring and pouring and pouring into them, but rather to choose yourself, to walk away with grace. All right, I thank you so much for being here this week. I appreciate you all so deeply from the bottom of my heart, and I cannot wait to talk to all of you again next week. Until then, stay safe and just be gentle to yourselves.